Welcome people to the World Wide Web, it's Cypher Sigma here. Sorry to... So it's another week, midweek video. So what have we got for you? As always, it is look what I have been watching. So what have I been watching, you may ask? See these. Let's try and get them into focus without the glare. There you go, funny picture to put on the thumbnail. And let's get going. So first off is The Giver. So this is a book that was turned into a film. The rights were originally bought, I think, by Jeff Bridges, who does star in this. He stars with, you can see him there, and obviously Meryl Streep. I can't remember this guy's name for the life of me. Brenton Thwaites. He Robin in The Titans. It also has Alexander Skarsgård in it, Katie Holmes and Taylor Swift with a very small cameo. So this kind of fits in the futuristic world. It reminds me a little bit of Equilibrium in parts, that basically the world, or there is a colony of people that have separated themselves from the world. They live on a kind of floating island that it looks like, and everyone's basically drugged and stuff, and so no one really has emotion or something. And you go through the cycles, and their cycles are basically, you are created if you pass the test when you were a child. You are then trained at school, and once school is finished, then you are given a job in the community to do whatever. That is how we started. It turns out that all the it's 3 kids. So you got the main kid here, his friend, and then you got another guy who's who's a bit of pilot. I think that's why they're represented by a little plane there. He gets given an important role called The Giver, which is over there. Basically, The Giver is the person who holds all the information in for that community, and it is his job to basically pass it on. So Jeff Bridges is the giver, and he basically passes it down. When they live in a society where you have no emotions, there are drugs that control it. When he gets this position, he actually learns a little of the world and the memories of everything that's gone on, and he then wants to do something about it. It is a little bit of a weird film. I just thought it had elements there. It's left quite ambiguous for the ending, and there's stuff that a little bit didn't make sense to me. Didn't quite click into place. Maybe if you've read the book, it might make a bit more sense. I've not, and probably never will. So it was worth a watch. It was 50p. It was £1 on DVD, so it was cheap to get the Blu-ray. So I've got it. It's in the collection. I say, who knows? They might do another version of it. I may come across the book, or someone who has the book, and they might be able to enlighten me. Who knows? So that's my first watch of the week. The second one, here we have Sword of the Samurai. So this is one I picked up a little while ago in CX for £6. And basically this follows, I don't know if they have him on it. So no, they don't have one of the main characters on it, which doesn't help things. I suppose I could go to the back. What you have is you have it is in the set in the era of Sengoku, which is basically, I think, a kind of wartime in Japan, and you have Japanese people and Chinese warriors kind of fighting each other. It's quite funny because they do use the different languages, but one is subtitled and one isn't, and it gives you a foreword in the front, which I thought was a little weird to have a foreword in there to explain that one's subtitled and one isn't, but it makes sense. Anyway, you have basically a set of monks. A temple gets attacked, and this little boy and his dog basically escape. They're running away from people who are after them. You don't know the where, what's, and whys, and you come across this unnamed samurai person. He then kind of takes him on as kind of a guardian, but for payment, to take him to this place that they're trying to get to, because they believe people are after them. You know, it is, and that's it. And then kind of the story unfolds of why they're after the child, and kind of elaborate plot and backstabbing and stuff, and lots of fighting scenes, lots of blood, lots of gore. And it is a really, really good little anime. Within itself, it's to learn. I say it's very small and precise in the little points that they make, but it is more kind of redemption of this character who doesn't have a name throughout it, and it's very interesting to see where his character goes, why he is and how he starts out as he is and what he does, and to learn his past. So this may go into anime, who knows? But it was quite a good film. So there we go. So that's the second one on the list for the month. So the third one was another one. So this is technically film 90 of the 100 that I have to watch. So I've watched 90% of the way through them. So this was Rosemary's Baby. This is it's set in the 60s, and this is the main character. You can see her there. So I'd probably do that there. That's her face. So she and her partner move into this flats with, I think they're in New York or somewhere in America. All the other people that live in there are very older. They're trying for a child, and they befriend this couple and something, and then the woman kind of has a bit of a breakdown. There's some weird stuff going on. It has the very much same feel and texture as Exorcist, and yeah, it's regarded as like a really kind of horror one. It's a little bit weird, and it's hard to explain. It is because it is very kind of a simplest. It does with the little kind of is she, isn't she, are they, aren't they, and it stretches the limits of your belief in some retrospects. But I mean, this is a 60s film. There is minimal they can do, a bit like with Exorcist. There is a minimal that they can kind of do with, especially compared to what is today. So it's kind of like you having the fairly brand new iPhone, and then this is a Nokia, and it's like it's hard to go back to this but try to appreciate it for what it is. And because I wasn't born up in the times, I wasn't even alive when this was a film, I get what they were doing with it, and because it's so regarded, I imagine they must have used a lot of the resources and techniques and everything of that day, and actors and stuff, because I think there are some well-known actors and stuff. I didn't really recognise anyone. I recognise some of the names, but I wouldn't, as I say, I think they haven't acted since I'm alive, so I wouldn't have really seen them anything, because I don't watch too many movies prior to my birth. I am starting to now, so this is the reason why. Yeah, not to give too much away, you kind of see a few bits coming. I thought some of it was a little bit obvious in places, because there was too few things that got, I say, because when is she, isn't she, and how she's feeling, and then she gets pregnant and all this stuff, there were just a few things that didn't add up or didn't make sense if you were going by the logic of the film, and some of it is even far-fetched, and it makes sense near the end. And it does, I say, the story does make sense from beginning to end. It isn't necessary. I would say this is more a work of fiction, a little bit in place to be trying to keep in horror. But I think there's clips of this even when I was watching it. I feel like I've watched this a little bit before, and it is a little bit of screwed up in the way it goes down. But I've seen it. It was okay. I say it's trying to compare it. There's elements in it. Maybe if I'd watched it back in the day and I didn't have all the knowledge I have now, it would be better. But there we go. And then the fourth one that I had, I apologise. That one is 89. This is 90. I've done them completely in the wrong one. So this is No Country for Old Men. Coen Brothers won loads of Oscars, as you see at the top, and it was a very interesting story, which I had to read up on the end because it confused me. So basically, you have two cartel Mexican drug lords and another fraction who are have a meet up to swap drugs, and that it all goes wrong. Everyone kills each other. Then you have Josh Brolin's character. He's like a hunter, kind of down his luck, walking through the desert looking for food and stuff. Comes across this, takes the money that's there. Xavier, however you pronounce his name. Oh, I'm going to be really bad. It's apology. Oh yeah, he's Xavier Bardem. So obviously from the late Pirates of the Caribbean film he was in, I think the last one. He is really good. He's been really weird of a bit of a psycho guy. He's basically like a hired hitman for one of these factions, and his job is to get the money back. Then you have Tommy Lee Jones, who's the sheriff, who is then trying to figure out, finds the scene with all the dead people and stuff, and realises that the money's missing and stuff, and is basically then trying to hunt down them too. As I say, it all builds to kind of a final scene, and then it's all, again, a bit like kind of Rose, or not even that, it's kind of, stuff happens, and it kind of, I say, it builds up, you think this one thing's going to happen, and then all these little things kind of happen, and then supposedly what is discussed at the end of the film is kind of to justify what goes on. It's about life and decisions and stuff like this. There are stuff that you don't get to see, but there are, by characters' traits, you feel that certain stuff is happening, so you don't necessarily know what happens to every character. And then, yeah, it wasn't very clear cut, and there was stuff that happened that to me didn't make sense. I mean, I know the Coens are, again, they're like a little bit out there, but it is what that is, and stuff it is regardless of them. I say I didn't really like it. I mean, it is just over 2 hours long. So the guy in the middle, he was really good, and Josh Brolin, you know, it did keep me quite entertained throughout most of it. I see there's Woody Harrelson and stuff in it. I said, yeah, and I just felt there were little bits missing, but that's by the by. So as we done always, I always like to throw a bonus one in there, and unfortunately this isn't a single one. So my wife is a few years younger than me, and she hasn't necessarily watched everything that I've watched, so I always like to throw some stuff at her from the 80s and so on. And something she hadn't seen that we spoke about the other day, and I thought I'd introduce her. So these are, unfortunately, it's a set of films, and it's Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2 and 3. Absolutely love this film. Loved it back in the day. Haven't watched it for a long time. You know, I do rate Eddie Murphy. He has some classic gems. You know, he's made some rubbish as well. But absolutely love this back in the day. Haven't watched it for a long time. I think it was way before the Frog song came out, and I think maybe that turned a lot of people off watching it. But it is what it is. And yeah, and obviously we went back, sat down and watched it in a span of or last week more or less. We watched 1, 2 and 3. I mean, my wife pretty like 1 and 3 she liked, but I think it was more kiddie because it had the whole Wonderland and stuff like this. But I still like the fact they kept him in. I know there was different people within the third one, and 1 and 2 were close together, and 3 isn't. I do like all the characters. I say, it was watching 1 and 2. I really wish there were more films like this. And I did a live stream recently and said about films like this, and it's like, why isn't there directors out there who get the old cameras, who are like this, aren't picture perfect, and film these kind of rough films that they have in that sort of style to kind of complement their story and make it a bit more grittier and stuff. Not like everything has to be brilliant, 4K, amazing, see everything, and then obviously they show loads of CG on top of it, and it just is, CG isn't brilliant, and this is, but yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, definitely recommend. I'm sure you can pick this up quite cheap. I mean, I've got a big bulky version I've had for many years. I love Eddie Murphy. He has, I think the last really good film I watched him was 1,000 Words. If you've ever seen that, I do recommend that. It's got quite a good gimmick in it. But yes, that is look what I've been watching. I think episode 14 we're on now. Hopefully you enjoyed what I've liked. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you wish to. I've been Cypher Sigma, and I shall see you in the next one.